Hello everyone, this is Nadira, and welcome back to Voice of East Turkestan podcast program. We have a long, exclusive episode today with Ruqya Turdush about the East Turkestanian people's challenges and their struggle to end Chinese colonialism in East Turkestan. She is a director and researcher at the Center for East Turkestan National Interest. Let's start with the first question. Many people around the world do not even know that East Turkestan ever existed as an independent region, not part of China, because of Chinese propaganda. Could you explain what the name East Turkestan means for Uyghurs and other Turkic people in the region, Ms. Ruqya Turdush?
East Turkestan is much more than just a regional or cultural name. For Uyghurs and other people, it carries deep historical, political, and emotional importance. It refers to a land with its own identity and completely distinct from China or Han Chinese and rooted in many centuries of Turkic culture and civilization. So the term East Turkestan is often used to assert that the region was not originally part of China. In fact, East Turkestan was the name of the independent republic established in 1944, 5 years before the founding of the People's Republic of China in 1949. So for Uyghurs, using the name East Turkestan is a way to express their historical memory and resistance to Chinese rule. It explains that the region was invaded and colonized by China. So it's a very political. That's why the Chinese government strongly opposes the use of this name, East Turkestan. It sees it as a challenge to its authority and the territorial claim. So when Uyghurs or others use the term, the East Turkestan, China often reacts with harsh criticism and they're madly angry.
Thank you for that. Now moving on to something closely related, how the world refers to East Turkestan. Mainstream international media often avoid using the name East Turkestan, or they use both names, East Turkestan and Xinjiang, together. Why is that? Is it because they don't want to anger China?
Yes, it could be the part of the reason. Most mainstream media outlets follow the official terminology used in international diplomacy, which currently reflects China's naming of the region as Xinjiang. This name is in Chinese language, means is new colony. It was given by the Chinese government to the region. It's not the real name of the region. But Xinjiang is the name recognized in official Chinese documents and international documents that China submit. Many journalists may choose this name to maintain clarity to their readers. Like you said, there is also often political caution at play because media organizations and governments are aware that using the name East Turkestan is associated with Uyghurs' identity and Uyghurs and other Turkic people's independence aspiration in the region. That can be seen as politically very sensitive and cause strong reaction from the Chinese government. But in recent years, Uyghur activists have increasingly pushed for the use East Turkestan, that name, for the journalists and NGOs and governments and the public to reflect the region's historical and the cultural identity. As a result, some international journalists and the media outlets have started to include both names, Xinjiang and East Turkestan, in their reporting in an effort to acknowledge this perspective and give voice to the Uyghur people's struggle for the recognition.
Thank you. Let's go deeper into the political relationship between China and East Turkestan. What is the relationship between China and East Turkestan since China colonized the region?
Well, it's a well-known relationship, especially in recent years, because it's a relationship between China's oppressive colonial and the genocidal power and the survival existence of East Turkestanian people. Because China's central government totally controlled every level of administration, in the region, from local affairs to natural resources and to the region's religious, education, and the cultural institutions. Even they controlled each Uyghur individual's thoughts and the behavior through face recognition cameras, fingerprints, and the DNA samples. China called this genocidal policies against Uyghurs as a nation-building project. In fact, it's to achieve unchallenged settler state and ethnic Han Chinese nation building in its colonial region, East Turkestan.
Thank you. Now let's turn to China's long-term plans for the region. Do you think China's nation building will succeed?
Xi Jinping thinks their genocidal nation building policy is very successful. He said that their policy against the Uyghur and other Turk people in the region is totally correct. So as you can see, half of the Uyghur population are terminated or destroyed through genocidal policies in recent years. Religious beliefs and cultural identity is oppressed. So it's very obvious that Uyghurs and other Turkic people are forcibly assimilated in fastest way and intense speed. I can say that they are not succeeding nation building, but they are succeeding in ethnic Chinese empire building. If Uyghurs and other Turkic people can't find a new way of resistance and external support and alliances against China, and if Chinese empire is not collapsed in 5 to 15 years, and if Uyghurs and other East Turkestanian people are not ready for this, there will be no hope anymore for Uyghurs to regain their national sovereignty.
You've mentioned a timeline before. Let's explore that a bit more. Why do you say in 5 to 15 years?
Okay, why I say that? Why I say that 5 to 15 years? Because Xi Jinping's China dream is set to 2049, right? According to 2023 Pentagon report, China is on pace to field more than 1,000 nuclear warheads by 2030. They are right now continuing a rapid modernization to meet Xi Jinping's goal of having a world-class military by 2049. So if they achieve this dream by 2049, China will replace the US hegemonic status, and it will be impossible for Uyghurs to gain external support and even internal support from their own people. By that time, today's existing Uyghur political movements and organizations will have difficulty, extreme difficulty, to redefining their goals in a way that convince their own people and international community. So there's another thing that I want to mention. There could be also a possibility that there could be major war happen between China and its rival powers before China achieved that dream. So Uyghurs must be ready for where is the East Turkestan in that picture if major war happens. Otherwise, they will lost and they will become most tragic, harrowing, and the lasting victims in that conflict.
What is the Uyghur resistance movement situation right now? Do they really have insurgency forces?
If you mean insurgency forces, that is definitely referring military forces. And the answer is no, because currently we don't have it. Even though we have Uyghur military forces in Syria, they can't get into direct convention war with China against the Chinese military. So I can't say that we have insurgency forces active right now. However, these Uyghur military forces in Syria can be based for future independent East Turkestan's defense forces if they are able to preserve East Turkestan's national aspiration and ideology and Uyghurs' cultural identity. And if we talk about inside East Turkestan, people are heavily oppressed, struggling under ongoing genocide, and struggling to survive for survival existence. If we talk about in diaspora, around the world, Uyghur activity is limited to raise awareness, activism to preserve cultural and religious identity, and the struggle to preserve a national aspiration. That's the situation.
And now, to wrap up, let's take a broader look at the challenges facing the movement today. What challenges are East Turkestan's national sovereignty and human rights movements currently facing? Has China been successful in defeating East Turkestan's independence movement or voices and related human rights activities abroad?
East Turkestan's national sovereignty and the human rights movement are facing huge challenges right now, especially in recent years. Most the biggest challenges, I think, is difficulty gaining other external power support. For example, US-led Western countries' diplomatic pressure against China's genocide in the region also weakened or become useless because of US support of Israel and Israel's genocide in Gaza. Same time, China actively using political, social, and economic incentives to eliminate the support of Uyghur population for their cause and support of international governments or any other support of sovereignty of East Turkestan and human rights issues in the region. For example, through economic, trade, or other diplomatic relationship, China silenced many countries, or they partly changed some of the country's diplomatic action that taken to put pressure on China. For example, Biden government is lift the sanction on the Chinese Institute of Forensic Science of the Ministry of Public Security of China that has human rights abuses against Uyghurs in order to get Chinese government cooperation on stop Chinese companies manufacturing chemicals use it to make fentanyl that killing thousands of Americans every year. Also, most of the Central Asian countries and Pakistan and other some of the Muslim countries, despite East Turkestanian people or their Muslim brothers, silenced China's genocide against Uyghurs. They are not only silenced China's genocide against Uyghurs, but also secretly deported Uyghur refugees to China. So there's another incentive that China using right now to eliminate people's motivation to support Uyghur cause is some limited social reforms. So they are currently allowing a few Uyghurs to return and visit their relatives in East Turkestan. Some Uyghurs who are seen as loyal to the Chinese Communist Party have also been allowed to visit their children or family members or relatives living overseas. So using these kind of social reforms, that China is dividing the Uyghur community in abroad. At first, this might seem like China is easing its harsh policies against Uyghur people. But these permissions are only granted to a selective few people, not to everyone, and first of all. And this is a part of a larger strategy that by the Chinese government to divide Uyghur diaspora. So as a result, those Uyghurs who want to visit back home have chosen to stay quiet and avoid openly supporting political movements against China, and they fear that speaking out could prevent them from getting a visa to visit East Turkestan and see their family members. So sadly, these people who choose to be silent and want to get visa to visit East Turkestan do not realize that by doing so, they are helping China's goal to eliminate Uyghur resistance completely and eventually erase Uyghur identity. Because when there is no resistance, no voice to speak out, it becomes much easier for China to continue its oppressive regime and even genocidal policies in East Turkestan. It will never end.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ruqya Turdush, for joining us today and sharing your insight. These conversations are difficult but necessary, and they help keep the voice of East Turkestan alive. To all our listeners, thank you for tuning in. If you found this episode valuable, please follow Voice of East Turkestan and share it with others. Until next time, stay informed, stay strong, and keep the conversation going.